I don't even think of it as a film, I think of it as an experience. And it's such an audacious, extraordinary addition to the Black cinematic canon. And so on behalf of all of us and everyone who's come before and everyone who is to come, thank you. Very extraordinary. Thank you so much. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about this because Black news is not just a single piece. It's kind of an unfolding practice, I think. And I think it's really important for any artists or anyone creative or in the audience to really hear from someone who has been able to participate in an unfolding of their creativity in a society and a culture that says it has to happen now, you do it now, and then it's success or it's failure, and then it continues on. You've been working with this as a practice since 2020, or was it before that?
2018.
2018. So can you tell us where just Black news as a nugget, as a seed, started within you?
First of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. But also there's incredible people in the crowd who worked on the film, in particular Anya Anyanwu, my wife, who produced the film, and Maid as well as Amy Greenleaf, who's also a producer on the film, has been working with Black news a long time. And also Zora is here, who's an actress in the film. Zora Kasaba. Interesting enough, the Black news was first shown on 2 screens in a friend of mine's store in Tokyo, and his son is here.
Oh, wow.
Solomon is kind of like my nephew.
Where's the son? Hi, son. How are you doing?
He's in school in London right now.
So that's the real beginning, huh?
Yeah, it's, well, Black news in general is a community family. Maybe not family, but definitely a team sport, as filmmaking is in general. But a lot of the film was directed by other people. So there's an aspect of the work, like a newspaper. I consider myself an editor-in-chief, where you have a bunch of incredible, maybe journalists and editors and photographers and people who make incredible things, and it's my job to bring it all together. One of the controlling ideas that I shared with both the actors and everyone involved with the project, but also the studios, was that I was approaching this like an album. And one of the more unusual aspects of that is that there were featured directors, like featured artists on an album, which is extremely unusual, you can imagine. It'd be like having you direct some stuff within the context of someone else's film.
If only you had asked me. Next time,
well,
part 2, I'll be there.
I mean, yeah, probably if somebody was bold enough to, let me do that again. It was really fun, but also, to Anya and Amy's point, probably very challenging to organize that type of
organize, but also for someone to figure out what it is that you were trying to do. Like, how did you communicate to your collaborators, or were they all friends? Well, I know who they are, so we'll talk about them a little bit.
Sure. Well, I noticed in Hollywood, let's just say, there's, it's a classical structure where it's a single person who has a single idea based on a bunch of notations on a page, and you get a bunch of people together, very highly trained, to execute this thing. And I always felt jazz was a more appropriate maybe style or process for Black creativity. And so when I approached Garrett Bradley and Kaneza Shaw and Raven Jackson and obviously Bradford Young, it was very natural to them in terms of what I was asking, despite having never actually maybe made a film in that way or filmmaking in that way. There's just an energy of, we're all riffing off of each other anyway. And so to have this space to do that, I won't say safe space, but to have the tools, the resources, and the challenge. I think really great artists and athletes, of course, they rise to a challenge. And so,
But in terms of just sharing with folk the unfolding of it, because one of the things that's fascinating, we'll dive into it, and also please think of any questions you might have because there'll be a little bit of time, is how it started. I'm just really fascinated by and want to encourage people that final idea doesn't have to be the first idea. And so this started as an installation, right? It was in a store, and then it went into museums and traditional spaces. and as an exhibition, and then it became a short film. And just can you walk folks through a little bit of that process?
Well, it was always a media company, a conceptual media company, if you will, which means it's the idea of a company or an idea of a media entity. And, you know, the world is already kind of there with social media, if you will. It's like things feel real when they're really just a logo and, you know, some material and some content. And I think mine was a little more rigorous than that, but it was the idea that Black news could show up in many different ways. And it's, you know, so the fact that it's been a movie or a newsreels before a movie or installation, or, you know, it could be a newspaper, it could be a printing press, it could be a lot of things. I mean, it's more I'm not interested in really doing all that, to be honest. I just want to make movies. But that was the conceit.
Okay, that's good. How many artists in the audience? Just artists, creative people? Okay, good. So I'll continue to ask some questions around those lines. So let's talk about this. Lake Volta. We'll cut to Lake Volta. Before Christmas, you're in a Soviet-era architectural hotel overlooking the Volta Dam. And you write about this in Filmmaker magazine. You said it was more than a production, it was a communion, a meeting of minds and hearts and histories. So you have very luminous collaborators. Can you talk a little bit about some of the superstars that you tapped? I mean, when the homies are legends and geniuses, it's easier. But I mean, the people that you were able to gather for this are incredible. So maybe we could talk a little bit about what a handful of them did. So let's talk about Garrett Bradley.
I mean, anyone who's seen her work, she's brilliant. I knew, though, she was kind of just starting out on her journey as a filmmaker, you know, and that there was a lot, I'm sure, that she wanted to do, and a lot of, when I notice when people start early and there's a lot of excitement around them, there can be a lot of pressure. And so part of what I was offering is a release of pressure. Like, it wasn't her film. It's like, I just want to feature you on my album. You know, like, all you gotta do is write a verse. Like, oh, that's different, you know?
Right.
And I'm surrounded by all these other people. I mean, so I knew that was a part of the invitation, but I also knew she had never been to Africa. And I was inviting her to shoot in Africa with Bradford Young and work with the boys, and we were writing the script. She didn't have to, you know, work in a specific kind of way when it's your film.
Sure.
You know, and that we had editors and we had everything to, you know, and she was really just being invited to collaborate in the process. So I had a feeling she would say yes, and I said, we're going to shoot on film, we're going to shoot on this old...
You're throwing out all the goodies.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, it was like, you know, do you have a week of your life where you can really just come jam with us?
Yeah.
And she said yes.
Yeah.
And that was, every aspect of the invitation was a little different, but I tend to invite people to do something that they probably wouldn't get asked to do, because most people only ask people to do things that they've already done. So if you've done music videos, you'll keep getting asked to do music, right? And most creative people can do so much more and want to do so much more. And I know that people, you know, like Sadia Hartman, who's an academic, is a writer, she's a scholar. I had the sense that she could write a screenplay and that no one would ask her to. But it wasn't also a whole screenplay.
Right.
It was 20 pages of work, that scholarship she's already done.
Yeah.
And again, she was like, that sounds really exciting, you know.
So smart and wise to tap into that, to ask people to be brave, right, in a thing that's adjacent to what they do, but not too far away that doesn't feel comfortable. How about Grace, who's all in the news this week?
Yeah, Grace Wales Bonner is probably the biggest talent of her generation. We met on a project I did for SAMFA back in 2017. She was with us in West Africa back then, and she was obviously smaller in terms of her practice at the time. And so we've been friends ever since. And we invited her to Ghana just to kind of hang out, if I'm not mistaken. She had designed the boat uniforms that you guys saw, the pink boat uniforms. But those were already done. She didn't have to come to Ghana. You know, you just ship those. But she came and was hanging out, and then the designer who was doing the wardrobe for us Virgil had just passed, and he was Virgil's like best friend, and he's a big deal in the fashion industry, and so he ended up taking over a lot of Virgil's.
Let's say last name so everybody knows who we're talking about.
Ib Kamara, or Ib Kamara. Yeah, it's brilliant. I had worked with. He had done the costumes for Sanfa.
Okay.
So it was our second time working together. And so we had this vacuum of a costume designer. His team had stayed, but I said, it's hard for me to collaborate with like assistants. I need to talk to somebody about what my ideas are, and then they need to talk to. So Grace was there, and I asked her, I was like, would you do me a favor and help, like be my collaborator? And she said yes. And so she designed all of old Du Bois's looks. She went to the markets. She sourced fabrics in Ghana. She was sewing.
Wow.
I will never forget. Yeah, it was an honor to see her actually work and see her mind, connect all these dots, given these insane circumstances.
Right. What's the house that she just joined, that just had the honor of having her? Hermes. Yeah. Wow, can't wait to see what that's going to be. Fred Moten. Were you taking material? Was he actually collaborating?
So we had the studio was really generous. They gave me a writer's room.
Oh,
so
wow.
They invited, they invited me.
The studio was participant?
The studio was participant. Okay. They invited me to think about Black News as a film, and I said, I would need to imagine what that is. I couldn't tell you just what I would think it was. They were like, great. And so we invited Fred and many others to kind of visit and just talk to us.
Can you imagine the writer's room is
The writer's room was incredible.
I mean, that's sick. That's crazy.
It was its own.
That's its own movie.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was at the Underground Museum. It was
Wow.
like kind of during COVID, so it was closed.
Yeah.
And we just had the whole space to ourselves,
Yeah.
for months. But we flew Fred out, and he hung out with us for a little while, more than a few days. And he said some things that rearranged our brain matter,
Like what?
I don't know if anyone gets Fred Moten's work, but it does something to you like on a cellular level. Mm-hmm. It's not, for me at least, I can't speak for everybody. And when you have him present and he's just kind of using plain speak, it has another type of, resonance, if you will. I think he gave us permission to be what you saw. Mm. We were dealing with Hollywood studios, and so there was this, I don't know, expectation, but I think there was a feeling for a little while that we needed whatever we were going to do to adapt to their thing. Mm. But talking to Fred, I think we realized we could just be ourselves and push. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And Participant, which is no longer, they're gone, was not in the Africa shoot, right? No one came from the studio, which is always nice. Is that what happened?
That was kind of I want to say a prerequisite, but since it was Garrett's shoot, the idea was the studios couldn't talk to the featured artist. So Garrett didn't have to talk.
They would go through you.
They had to talk to me.
Gosh, please invite me next time. My goodness, what a treat.
And I took myself out of the equation because I realized...
So you passed it?
It was really Amy and Anya that the collective directors were kind of managing, if you dealing with.
Kind of shielded from that piece of it. How nice. So the film moves between so many different modes. You've got prank videos, you've got lectures, you've got social media stuff along with archival, you've got the stuff that was shot. Oh, before I get into that, Bradford.
Yeah.
I forgot Bradford. Talk about Bradford.
Oh, no, yeah. So Bradford Young, the cinematographer. I mean, another, best of his generation. What was amazing to me was he was the cinematographer for all the different directors. And so he, Kira Kelly, who's another insane.
Kira Kelly's here,
isn't
she?
Yeah.
Kira Kelly,
she might be here. Yes.
The legend I heard was here. Hi,
She just shot him, by the way, which is beautiful, insane.
Shot him.
But it's already
Shot 13. Shot Queen Sugar.
Shot 13.
Just a few things. Yes.
She'll tell you it's a lot just to try to imagine like one director is trying to do and then manage, you know, everything. So Bradford had to manage Garrett, me, Kaneza Shaw, and Arthur Jaffa, and they all look totally different, you know, within the context of one film.
I don't know if you can manage AJ, but
I think he did a pretty good job. I mean, AJ's thing is a separate short that we're going to release independently, so you guys will see what that looks like. Yeah.
Cool. We have more to look forward to. So just talking about kind of all of these different pieces of the puzzle and how they come together in this beautiful quilt, this beautiful tapestry, and kind of what was the internal logic like as you were putting together? Is it just very internal and intuitive as you're editing? You're trying things kind of like with AJ Love is the Message, it's building on each other over time, or are you hunting for the meme that will go with the archival? What was the process?
That's a really good question. I don't know if I've actually had enough. I'm not very self-reflective. I'm more hyper-present, so I wouldn't quite know how to answer that, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay. Did you have one editor?
We had a handful of people do different things. It's kind of like an album because it has multiple producers and engineers. Yeah.
Got it. And did you map out whose piece of the patchwork would go where, or did you bring it all in and then start to?
So the encyclopedia, which I'm sure you guys would all agree is like pretty fundamental to understanding what you watch, that came like with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Right. Yeah. I love it when that happens. So that whole framing device of the page numbers, that was all a late breaking thing. Okay. So it was an organizing principle that you felt you needed at the end? Kind of.
This is such a unique project, as I'm sure we're all aware. So I can't really. There's no like I could try to use like music as an analogy or something, but yeah, I
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Let me read this quote that you said at Sundance. Most of the film is meant to be read literally and figuratively, but I also want to avoid telling you or giving you everything. What I think is a little awkward about this process is filmmakers are very conditioned to talk about our films where musicians are not. I don't consider myself a musician, but I really enjoy not knowing what Stevie Wonder meant with Songs in the Key of Life. I really enjoy the mystery. So I don't want to puncture that. So I'm going to try to ask questions around it. Can we talk about the Nautica? The Nautica? I just want to ask a little bit about this idea of this kind of aspirational yet speculative thing, you know, that you connect very beautifully to Black Star Line, Marcus Garvey's kind of unfinished project. And this whole idea of kind of embracing what has not quite been completed in the film. I saw that in a couple different instances and wondered, is that something you were following or something that I'm seeing independently of your intention?
Well, it's interesting. I noticed walking around ARRAY, it's so incredibly well realized and beautiful. And I'm like, wow, this is, I'm sure, what it feels like in Black culture in general is like this lineage of unfinished things, you know. Du Bois would argue his work was completely unfinished. Marcus Garvey, Fannie Lou Hamer, you name it, you know. We see them as these incredible icons of history and culture that accomplish so much, but I think in their own words, they consider themselves failures. So I felt like we're just continuing the work of other people, and instead of kind of doing a retrospective of Marcus Garvey's life as a documentary or something, or even a recreation of things that had happened. What I love about jazz is they never really play the same thing twice. Like they're not interested in how jazz gets techno, how jazz gets hip hop, how jazz gets house music. All this is moving forward, moving forward, moving forward. So the Nautica is like, okay, what's Garvey's thing?
Yeah.
what's the next thing, you know?
Right.
But also, movies, sometimes black films, feel like we don't always have the license to be like make-believe. You know, like it always has to, what happened and why we're in this situation or how I was raised or how I grew up, whatever it is. And sometimes that just perpetuates the same shit, you know, excuse my language. But Hollywood, the definition of Hollywood is make-believe. And, you know, as filmmakers, I think it's our job to do that.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about the Hollywood industrial complex and how you think about your work within it and outside of it. You have this enterprise, it's Black News, you're creating work that's unlike what we ordinarily see, and yet in order to not express it, but to amplify it, you've chosen to walk through Sundance, to walk through, institutions that are adjacent, if not intrinsically a part of the Hollywood industrial complex. And so I always am interested in asking Black and Brown and artists who are outside of the perceived center, how you're managing for yourself. I'm talking to your distributor outside about AMC theaters and Oscar qualifying and all of these kind of things that are the atmosphere of our work these days. How are you reconciling all of that for yourself?
I also have to, Robin D.G. Kelly is here. I'm so sorry, Robin. He was also a hugely
Hey,
important.
wow, more legends in the building. Goodness gracious.
If you guys aren't familiar, he wrote, he's
You're not familiar.
written so
you got a lot of
many
good
books.
Googling to do. A lot of names dropped.
But he was also there the day, he was there one of the days that Fred was there.
Oh, wow.
So he was part of the writer's room as well, but he wrote the definitive book on Thelonious Monk, which I'm still reading, but honor for him to be here. Question about the Hollywood industrial complex.
Yes.
I don't know. I realize they want what we make, right? And so very often it feels like they have the answers or they have what we need, whether it's access or scripts or actors. And there might be some merit to that, but when I look at the history of Hollywood and all the people we love, it's like bringing new talent and new ideas to the table, And so I realize with all the people you just named, they're kind of on the fringes at best in Hollywood, right? Garrett is, amazing, right? But at the time when I met her, she had
Garrett's
just
an Oscar nominee.
Yeah, but
I'm saying like we're all,
when I met her, but anyway, yes,
Yeah.
when I met her, she had just done one documentary,
Right.
But like,
what I'm saying is, there's this intention there, and we know what the lineage is and what the legacy is and all of that. But also, if we want to reach people, the mechanisms these days. And I would say, I think that's really shifting quickly. But the mechanisms these days, more often than not, has us touching the kind of corporate apparatus. And I'm just wondering, is that something that you've considered or had any tension with, or you're like, me, I'm going to use whatever is the bullhorn for me to reach as many people as I can, and still try to hold on to the things I want to say. How have you managed that as you've had to kind of touch this museum industrial complex and the curatorial space and people who pick and choose and review and decide and fund?
You're probably a better person to ask than I am. You seem to navigate this whole thing way more expertly than most.
I think you're doing it pretty good. Shall we leave it there? Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Spread the word. Black News, Terms and Conditions opens in theaters in November. So keep an eye out and tell your friends. Thank you.